Hey guys, this is Mark. Welcome back. In the previous video of this training course, I talked about triggers in general, what they are, how they work, and so on. A lot of useful information that is just general knowledge that you need to have about triggers in FlowRunner. In this video, to solidify the knowledge that you got from the previous lecture, we will use a specific trigger that is very demonstrative of how triggers work in general. And that trigger is called External Callback. In fact, we will build an automation that is super simple, but it will become the foundation for many other lessons and lectures that we will have in this training course. So what this automation will do is there will be a trigger that wakes up when data is submitted to it. And then we will take this data and we'll save it in Airtable as a record. And what the data will be is really just a form that you fill out, a UI form that will include name, phone number, email, date of birth, and just some additional details that a user can type in. To make it cooler, we will use Replit to create that UI page, and it will have the knowledge of where the data needs to be sent. So let's get going. For this, create a brand new flow. You already know how to do this. And in the toolbox of all of the blocks that are available in FlowRunner, locate External Callback. It's going to be in the category triggers. If you're having a hard time finding it, just right here in the search bar, just start typing External Callback. You will see right here, External Callback. That's the guy that you want. Drag it out here into the flow. When you click that block, right here in the properties sheet, you will get callback URL. That's the URL that the flow will be, that your trigger and the flow will be listening on and waiting for data to arrive. Okay. While you're developing this flow, while it's not running, nothing is listening. So using that URL, if your flow is not running, will not do anything. But having this URL while you're developing your flow is going to be important. And here's why. So if we take this URL, you can just click this icon to copy it into the clipboard, and you will use this URL to create your UI app. Okay. This is how I went about creating my UI app. So here I am in Replit. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, replit.com, which is a AI-driven application generation service. Okay. And I started it where I said, I want to build a single page app with user registration form. The form should include name, date of birth, phone number, identify the fields that it should have. And then the important thing that I included here is I said that when the form is submitted, the data must be sent to the following endpoint as a post request. It doesn't have to be post request. It just makes it easier. It could actually be a get request. However, whenever you send something to a URL, if you're not a developer, just know that post request would actually be a better option. Doesn't matter as long as you know what to tell Replit to do. Once it did it, it generated this form. And of course, I iterated of this form. And then here, as you can see in the initial prompt, I did not say anything about email. And I didn't say anything about additional details. Those are the prompts that I was giving it later on as I was communicating with that AI assistant that was building the UI. Now, once it is built and it's there, you can actually try it right here. And by the way, Replit has the free tier that all of this did not cost me a penny, but their paid tier is also very, very reasonable. But I'm getting off topic. So you will generate this form, and it will have the knowledge of how to send data to FlowRunner. Okay. If you want to test it out, okay, and just get this data into FlowRunner, you can actually do it without fully launching your flow. And here's how you do it. And in fact, there is a significant benefit to what I'm about to show. In here, okay, this is our flow, okay? This is our external callback, and it's just sitting and waiting. What you can do is you can turn on test mode. Just click this test mode, and notice that there is this icon right here, this blue telephone, okay? And this telephone is so-called learning mode. Amazing feature. What this does is if once I click this icon, okay, as you can see right here, it says learning mode is on. What happens is without running your flow, your trigger is sitting and waiting for the data to come in. Once the data comes in, this block, this trigger, will know the structure of your data. Having the structure of your data is very important because as you start doing things in your flow, you can reference individual fields for the data that came in. So let me demonstrate how this would work. We're going to leave this on. Orange means the learning mode is on. It is listening. And I will go back to my form right here, and I'm just going to fill it out for myself. So for date of birth, let's just pick something arbitrary, or actually I'll just pick my birthday. You will know when I was born. So here it is. I selected birthday, my phone number. I will not reveal. Okay. My email address, it is mark@backendless.com, and some additional details. They're not important right now. So click register. Okay. So now that has been sent. If I go back to FlowRunner, notice that now this icon is green. And then when you move the mouse over, it says block has learned the data structure. So it received that phone call from my UI form that said, here's your data. Okay. So at this point, you can turn off test mode because this guy has learned its structure. Okay. And the next thing that you will need to do is if you go to the toolbox, find Slack and locate an action that is going to be called Slack. Why? What am I talking about? We're doing Airtable, guys. Airtable, and inside of Airtable, you will create record. That's the one that you want. Connect the two together. Okay. Now, in your Airtable, you will need to establish connection. So for this, I already established connection, and that means that you need to have an account in Airtable. Go create an account in Airtable. Super straightforward. And then when you are using this, you will have the login button. Click login, select your account. Okay. And then in there, you will need to specify what workspace you're going to be working with. Either select a specific workspace or just say all workspaces. Then in Airtable, I also created my base. So it's sort of like a database of records. So here's the thing that I want to show you. Before you go there, just in this open up expression input, we will not really need it. Just I wanted to demonstrate what happened. So in here, if you select external callback data, double click. When you click on this, notice that all of the data that I sent from UI now shows up right here. And that's because learning mode got the data from the UI and now knows the structure. So now in my flow, in my automation, whenever I need to reference any of these fields, any of these data points, I can do that easily. Okay, so if I need to send an email, I have that email field that I can just use to send out an email to that user. Okay, so I just wanted to demonstrate this. We do not really need to do it here. What we do need is click on base. There's going to be a list of bases that want to use. My base is called form submissions. Then there's going to be a table, contacts, and then fields. Fields is the actual data that we want to send to create our record. And for this, all the fields that we want to store in Airtable are going to be the result of this external callback data. So we can just take this callback data because inside it will have all of these fields. Now, I'm going to leave this open and pay attention. So we have 5 fields: name, DOB, phone, email. In your case, they may be different. So if you configured your UI form in Replit, however you structured those queries, it may come up with its own names. Okay, it's not guaranteed that they are going to be identical as this. So this is important. So with this open, what I did is I went to Airtable, and before I actually connected Airtable, I created my workspace. I created this form submissions base. There's a table that I created called contacts. And notice that I have these columns: name, DOB, phone, email, and so on. In fact, these are exactly the same as the fields in the structure that came in. Notice name, name, DOB, DOB. Okay, phone, email, additional details. And in fact, in here, you can specify the data type. So for example, for phone, the data type is phone number. So Airtable knows what kind of data you will be storing in there. So once you have all of these configured, okay, I will put it back. then it's okay to just send callback data into this parameter of this action create record. Okay. So at this point, it's done. The automation is in place. Trigger receives data and just stores it in Airtable. So now we can start flow. Okay. And what I will do is this. I will have two things open. One is going to be my form, and the other is going to be my Airtable. Okay. And let's see if I can just have them together. Exactly. So let's just say it's going to be username Bob with some birthday, phone number, email, bob at flowrunner.ai. Bob is awesome. Click register. Okay. Now it went into automation, and automation saved it in Airtable. Now in our table, we have this record. Okay. So all the data that was created by our AI generated UI went to FlowRunner. FlowRunner processed it and saved it in Airtable. And with this, that's the automation. I think it is pretty cool. One more thing, if you have this automation running and you go back, go to manager, if you click on instances, here I have a bunch of instances. You will have only as many times you actually run it. So in here, you can actually get some analytics, okay? But that's sort of a preview of what's coming later on in our training. But for now, the most important thing is you learned how external callback works, how to train it with learning data, how to take the data that it received and pass it on further down to the successor blocks that come in further down the line in your automation. These are very important concepts. I'm glad we're taking small baby steps. And then as we go, this very automation and many others that we'll create, we'll start beefing them up to creating something more complex, more intelligent, something that will actually help you a lot and free up a lot of time from your day-to-day tasks. Thank you for watching this video, guys. I hope you found it useful. And as always, happy automating.